Hold on a second. All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to another Make Loud Monday. This Monday is Independence Day, July 4th. And even though it's a holiday, we're not taking a break from producing some content. Going to be presenting an interview that I did with my friend Vince. Vince is not only a friend, but also a musician and a all-around certified rock star. We'll talk more about that later. We're going to be talking a little bit about some of the songs on the album, music in general, movies, telecommuting, commercial real estate. Boy, we're going to just go everywhere, aren't we? So I hope you'll enjoy it. The whole thing is gold. Do check it out. And here is the interview.
Okay. All right, we're good. I like this grainy camera. Usually it looks a little brighter. There we go.
Yours or mine? Because
yours is crystal clear. Mine looks like an old Polaroid.
backlighting.
All right. So let's go ahead and get started.
All
All right, everybody. Today we're going to be talking with my friend Vince, and I have an embarrassing admission. I've known Vince for over 20 years, and I don't know exactly how to pronounce his last name. Is it Albicelli or Albicelli?
Technically it's Albicelli, but honestly, if people get anywhere in the vicinity, I'm happy. I just roll with it.
Super. Okay, so everybody, please say hi to Vince Smith. He'll be joining us today.
Not in the neighborhood, man.
So Vince and I have known each other for a long time, and it wasn't until after I'd known Vince for a while that I found out that he was a fellow guitar player and also a cellist. So we're going to hear a little bit more about that, and hopefully maybe we'll even get Vince to play some stuff for us today. So Vince, how you feeling today?
Okay. It's been quite the weekend.
Uh-huh.
The car needed some minor fender repairs, and the oil was bone dry. So yeah, I had to do some remedial wrenching to even get it into the shop later this week.
Oh boy.
Yeah.
Always a tinkerer. Always a tinkerer.
Good stuff.
So how are the hands? How are you feeling? You think you'll be able to play today?
Probably not. I had a neck injury some years back, so I've got some nerve damage, which, some days I just wake up in a fascinating amount of pain, and today is one of those days.
Oh no.
But, I'm more than happy to lay down some backing tracks for folks sometimes, add a little bit of color. But my solo days are well behind me. It's got intermediate level playing now, as opposed to when I was conservatory.
Conservatory. Wow. Okay.
So it gets kind of frustrating, but I'll lay down some stuff that's not too advanced. It's like the old bass player joke. Kid learns bass, and so his dad's like, "Oh, what'd you learn your first lesson?" Kid's like, "Oh, I learned to play the E string." "That's great, son." So then second week, father goes, "What'd you learn in your lesson this week?" "Oh, it was great. We learned the A string. I can play Twinkle Twinkle Little Star now." So then third week goes by, father's like, "Hey son, what did you learn in lesson this week?" Kid's like, "I didn't have a lesson this week." "What? Where were you?" "I got a gig." That's pretty much the level that I'm playing at these days.
That's pretty much the level I'm playing at every day. And in all fairness, started as a bass player. Yeah, I think I remember my first two-string song was "Walking on the Moon" by The Police. That's
Yeah.
I think that's a one stringer, in fact,
Yeah, it really is.
at least for the main riff.
Yeah.
So,
Ironically enough, Sting's a great bass player.
well,
But
I mean, like it's like anything else, you know, playing the most notes offends the royal ear, as Salieri might say. But like, it doesn't mean that you're playing the best. Like
right.
for me, like you listen to Jimi Hendrix and you listen to the solo section in like Crosstown Traffic.
Yeah.
I could play that. I could probably play that with my feet. It's
Yeah.
not hard.
Yeah.
Would it sound as good as Hendrix playing it? No, because I don't have the musicality that he has, and that's that's the whole thing. Is when you know what to play
Yeah.
and can play it expressively, you don't have to play a lot.
Right. Right. It's
And that's my excuse, and that's why I never get any better.
practice, man, practice.
Yep. Someday,
But
Carnegie Hall.
not like you have a full-time job or anything that gets in the way of practicing, right?
Yeah, well, I mean, I work in advertising, so I'm not sure that that's
Okay.
really a
Yeah.
full-time job, even when it is a full-time job. But
Yeah.
you know,
Oh
these
yes.
things happen. These
Know
things
how
happen.
marketing goes.
Yep, it's true. So, all right. So, what did we want to talk about today? There's a lot of things that we could talk about. I guess the first thing, you were the inspiration for one of the songs on the album. I don't know if you even had any expectation that anyone would take you up on it. But why don't you tell people what happened?
Yeah. So, usually when we think of punk rock, we think, mid 70s, UK, America, But I posit that one of the greatest punk songs of the early 70s in the UK was actually written in Belfast by a folk singer called The Men Behind the Wire. Had to do with the Troubles, just powerful, tragic song. But every single cover I've heard of it, I've heard, damned if it isn't this slow, god awful trudge. It's like, when you're in church, if you're Catholic, you know what I'm talking about. Joy to the world. I mean, it's like a freaking dirge, man.
That didn't sound like Joy.
Yeah,
From what little I know about Joy, that did not seem to qualify.
Yeah, exactly. So yeah, I mean, Men Behind the Wire, yeah, it's very nice as a folk song, but it really needs a punk version of it. I mean, you got to have some of that anger, that righteous anger for a protest song. So I have yet to hear one, and I just kind of threw out there, there really needs to be a punk version of this. And you stepped up, man. You dropped this track that was like, yes, this is what we need. So,
It was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun. What was interesting was that you just put up the lyrics. Armored cars and tanks and guns came to take away our sons, and I was like, yeah, that sounds punk to me. But I'd never heard the song. I had no idea what the heck you were talking about.
Yeah.
But that's never stopped me before, and probably won't ever stop me again. So I went and I found one of those dirge-like recordings of it, and I was like, all right, this is, let me just chord map this, and I don't even play the same chords. I just kind of got an approximation of the progression, because as you point out, like, everybody plays it a little different, like any folk song. And
it's like a 1-4-5,
no, what isn't? And so I was like, all right, a lot of folk songs tend to just be, a pretty straightforward pattern that march right through, because the intent is to have somebody else sing along. I was like, all right, I want to throw in a solo section, and I don't even remember what movie. Oh, the movie was called Michael Collins. So I was like, all right, let me throw in some names in there. Michael Collins, and I remember when I was a kid, Bobby Sands was still in the midst of his hunger strike, and of course, most people who've traveled to England as I have a few times, or lived there, have heard of Jerry Adams, and I was like, all right, I just need one more name. So I just looked, like I went onto Michael Collins' Wikipedia page and looked for other names that were mentioned there, and I came up with Patrick Pierce.
Yeah.
And so it's like, all right, I'll throw that into the solo section, get some names to, I don't want to make it into a Red Hot Chili Peppers song, but just have some names that people could reply with. And it came together. And then the last piece that I wanted to do was like, let me contrast the two. So I open up the track with me just playing the acoustic guitar with a single microphone. And it's actually a really terrible recording. I mean, it sounds bad, but I kind of didn't care. And so we've got like the bullies. Hey, what's that you're playing? It's a protest song. I don't want any trouble. Well, you've got some. And then right into it we go. Yeah. Really fun. I had a lot of fun doing it. So I'm hopeful that somewhere there's more inspirations like that from you or from others. Maybe somebody else will suggest that we need, like a funk version of the Mary Tyler Moore theme or something. Could be. I've got the auto wah. Yeah. Cool. Well,
perfect.
I'm glad you shared the backstory, because I only knew what the side of that conversation that I saw. I had no idea that you knew this song well and what brought it to your attention. So that's cool. That's interesting.
My family picnics on my mom's side, Donegan, not Albicelli, they'll just have on the stereo just playing like Irish pub songs, Irish protest songs, stuff like that. So my dad's there the one time, and I think it was like a back-to-back, like Men Behind the Wire, a Northern Ireland version of This Land Is Your Land, and Danny Boy. And my dad's listening to this, and he just goes, no wonder you're all a bunch of suicidal drunks. This music is depressing. And meanwhile, I'm just stunned because, like, this is the guy who, like, boycotted Nintendo back in the 80s because of harmful ethnic stereotypes with Super Mario Brothers, It's like, you know where we... he's rolling.
That's hilarious. Yeah, there's nothing inaccurate about those Luigi. Mario. No, nothing. It's on the money. Yeah, it's funny. So
every Italian I've known.
Yeah, I'm Murphy, but I was brought up in the La Marianas, not really part of my dad's family at all, and so that cultural tension between the two is
Civil War breed.
Sounds cool. All right, so let's see. What else do we want to talk about here?
Well, let's talk about the album.
Okay, I'm down with that.
So like, kind of just kicking off. I gotta say, there's most albums I listen to. There's at least two songs that I'm just like, nope, fast forward. Nope, fast forward. And I didn't find that with this album. Like, wow. Every song's eminently listenable.
Eminently listenable. I'll take it.
I
really,
man.
I really appreciate that, because when I started putting together this album, like I've wanted to record music for a long time, and I never felt like I had the skill, and it's possible that I really don't. But when we were on COVID lockdown, like, what the hell else were you gonna do?
Right.
And so, my very simple mind was like, I'm just going to record a bunch of songs, and that's it. I'm just going to do it. I don't even care if they're good. I'm just going to do it, because the longer you wait to make something perfect, the less likely you are to ever get there.
Right.
And I came up with this clever little pun that, because my desk is actually, I have some contact paper on it that makes it into a whiteboard.
Okay.
And so I was like, it's going to, instead of the White Album, which was a classic, it's going to be the Whiteboard Album.
Nice.
And so each time I wrote a song, I would do a little doodle drawing, and that would be, and I took a picture of it, and that would be the cover art for it, and I would put it out on SoundCloud. And so I did this, and I pulled together like 15 songs for the Whiteboard album, and then I did another album called Sophomore Slump. The cover art for that is fantastic. It's you remember when Rudy Giuliani gave his speech behind Four Seasons Total Landscaping up in Northeast Philly? This is pretty close to where Vince and I live, so I actually went and visited it and took a picture of it myself.
Nice.
Because I could not believe it. And there is nothing staged about that. It was 100% as effed up as it looked.
Yeah.
So that was my
actually using that as my Zoom background for a while.
So did I. Yeah. So did I. Yeah. Yeah, and like at first I was like, oh, maybe people won't understand that I'm joking. And other people were like, is that your house? And I'm like, just watch a newscast. But
yeah, same here. It's like so many people didn't know what it was. Then finally someone would say, dude, that's Four Season Landscape. They're like, oh, I wondered why Vince was like doing the meeting from like a home improvement place. And it's like, have you not seen the news in the last year, you know?
It was just too priceless.
Yeah.
Yeah, so I did like 15 songs for that, and those were mostly around the election, the 2020 election, and but that's also where the Ruth Bader Ginsburg song came from. Yeah. And then I did another album. Like I just kept on putting these together, and I would listen to them in the car, and it was exactly that same thing. Like I would listen to it for a solid month, and if it got to the point where there was any one song where I was like, then that was like, okay, this is part of the editorial process.
Yeah.
And so it was out of those two albums, plus another one that I was calling Under the Covers, which was all cover songs, and then another one that was Even the Love Songs Are Political, and then another one is like I go back to them and say, like, is there anything here that is going to be on the next album? And by and large, no. There's one song that I wanted to do an interpretation of the Nina Cherry song "Trout." You know it?
Yep.
For those who don't, it's the one that is with Michael Stipe, and it's about sex education. Yeah. And I wanted to do that song, but I did it as a mashup with Kilgore Trout from Apocalypse Now. And so it's just that little guitar riff, you know, that little guitar riff, and it's kind of not really hip hop. It's, you know, it's like strum hop or whatever it is. Yeah. And it came out almost right, but there's just something about the sound of it that I'm just like, it's cringy. But I'm going to keep working on that. So that's one that may be the glistening gem on the top of the dung heap. But it's exactly like you said. You know, if I can't listen to it after 15 or 20 times and I made it, then somebody else is not going to want to listen to it once or twice. So I did. There was a lot of editorial discretion that went into it.
Yeah, so would you say that it's because, you know, the song just inherently had some problems, or was it more the recording? Like, talked about Trout, you know, are there any others that you were like, yeah, you know what, if I had, you know, a little better recording, you know, did a couple different tweaks here and there, yeah, this is a good song? Or is it just, yeah, I crapped this one out, and it was late Friday night. We'll just forget this ever happened. This won't even be on the basement tapes when I release my box set.
What's surprising is that many of the songs on the album were really, really quick turnarounds.
Yeah,
because they were right. Like they were the kind of song that I should make. So like the Men Behind the Wire, I honestly think that like maybe I did a little bit of EQ on it.
Okay.
Like I didn't touch it.
Yeah.
And all the voices on the song are me just like
Right.
facing the microphone from different angles, or opening my mouth real wide, or
Yeah.
like, you know, holding up a dinner plate,
Okay.
just
Yeah.
to sound different. And like, I don't care that they're not perfect. Like, you get the idea that it's a group of people, and so what if
Right.
it's all the same person?
Yeah.
It doesn't matter. Like, the song works without that. The ones that aren't on there are the ones that I spent weeks struggling with, re-recording, and like, oh well, maybe that doesn't sound good as a distorted guitar. Let's do a clean guitar. Let's double everything. Let's try panning things differently. Let's try adding effects. Let's try EQ. Let's try pitch modulation. Let's try everything. And they were just somehow, for the large part, some of them were just unrecoverable.
Yeah.
Like, they're not. I imagine that if good musicians played them live, people would be like, yeah, this is cool, it's good.
Right.
But like, I just couldn't make it work. And I think that live music and recorded music are fundamentally different. You're more forgiving in the live setting.
Yeah.
So, and then there was one or two, like another one that I think you saw, because I posted most of it on Facebook. It was called Lilac and Elderberry. And it was basically somebody was scam texting me.
Yeah.
And so I just did like this sort of hyperkinetic groove to it and just read the text messages.
Nice.
And I'm like, all right, this is funny. Like, this would be on the box set. This would be a B-side.
Yeah.
But it's not the kind of thing that, you would listen to over and over again.
Yeah.
It's funny once that I'm
Right.
climbing the outside of Liberty Place with suction cups and then base jumping to the Love statue. That's funny once. It's not funny twice. So yeah, there's a couple that I
Hidden
think.
track.
What's that?
You should hidden track that one, you know?
Yeah. Train in Vain,
Well,
right?
it is a lot harder with the digital albums now to do the hidden track. Because,
That's true. I hadn't even thought about that hidden track. Yeah, that's an interesting idea. So I don't. Like I said, I think there's a couple that might be recovered. Some of the covers, I think I'm less confident about covers, because I feel like if you're gonna do a cover, it should either be better than the original, or it should praise the original.
yeah.
And like, even my cover that's on the album of She Sells Sanctuary, I hope that it came out all right. Every time I hear that song, I hear a sitar.
Yeah.
And I just wanted to do that. And I don't have an actual sitar. I have this.
Yeah. Nice.
And this is an awesome pedal.
Yeah.
It's probably a little too complicated for me, so maybe it didn't come across that well. But like, I cannot sing like Ian Astbury. Who can?
Yeah.
Not even close. So, I had to just be as confident as I could with what I was able to execute. And, I might skip over that song once or twice, but I don't skip over it every time. I'm not sick of it. It's just that I wish that vocally I was a little bit stronger. But hidden track. That's an interesting idea.
I might have to just, why is the last song on this album 16 minutes long? Drum solo?
Yeah.
Hidden track.
Well, maybe that one that I was playing before with all the repeats and the glitches in it, that could end up being the 16-minute track.
That could be kind of the interlude between the end of the actual tracked song and the beginning of the
there it is.
Track,
Interesting. Yeah. Interesting idea.
Yeah, just give them like 10, 15 minutes of that glitch.
Mm-hmm.
See who sits through it and reaps the reward.
Well, you probably were into Nine Inch Nails at least a little bit in the '90s, right?
Oh yeah,
Yeah, I figured.
they're on my current playlist. I mean, come on.
It drove me bananas that so like what was the album called? Wish, that it had
Yeah,
99 tracks on it,
yeah,
and they just kept on putting track markers like in the middle of stuff.
yeah,
And I feel like, Trent was doing that just to be like, well, don't put my stuff on shuffle.
yeah.
My stuff is better than that. But he didn't do that for the first like 4 songs. He just kind of maybe at the end
Right.
got into a
Yeah,
snit. Um,
yeah,
but yeah, you can do all kinds of goofy stuff, I suppose.
yeah. I remember when I ripped that one. I'm like, how many fucking tracks?
Yeah, and there's a Gorilla Biscuits album that does almost exactly what you're talking about, where there's
Yeah.
just like there's a part where he's like, and now 5 minutes of silent reflection over Jeremy's taco dip, or something. It's not Jeremy's taco,
Nice.
but it's something like that. And then literally it is 5 minutes of silence, and then it goes into their EP. They put their
Yeah.
EP on the end of the CD. So yeah, you gotta sit. But I was like, I'm gonna sit here and listen. If they put it on there, I'm gonna listen to it.
Yeah,
And the stuff at the end is fantastic. So
yeah. Worth
yeah,
the wait.
definitely. All right, hidden track. There it is. That's the idea. So only listeners to this interview will be wise to that.
Yeah. So, other things with the album. Pogo is more surf than a song entitled Murph and Surf.
You think
I,
so?
I do. I absolutely do.
Hello.
I have
Even
a
without
terrible
trippy
big-
reverb?
Message about getting the papers
That's
because I
I'm
was making
surprised.
my lunch.
Yeah.
It.
And I
I
just
was
sat down
listening
with lunch.
to
What time do
Pogo.
we need to go?
Started the album, and I'm like, yes, cool groove. I'm liking this. I'm like, next song's Murph and Surf. We're gonna get this, but even more. And it's like,
On the
yeah, I
calendar,
thought
it
Pogo
says
was
till
more surf.
4:30. Let me see if I
Oh.
can find it.
Yeah.
Okay, interesting. Yeah, Pogo is literally it's a song that I kind of recorded myself on my phone that said, here's one of many songs I wrote while on a boring conference call. Someday I should put out an album of that. And essentially that's what this album is songs that I wrote on boring conference calls, because this is my office. This is where I work.
Right.
But,
So are you on
I
the road
work
right now?
with all of this around me. So
you
Okay.
can't help
All right,
it.
sounds good. I'll give you a call when I'm done.
I don't
calling.
want to help it.
Yeah.
I don't call that help, actually. So I just kind of picked up the guitar and just came up with that little riff, and then I think coming up with that nice little walk down bass line was what gave it its bounce, and that's when it became named Pogo, because I was like, I just want to bounce.
Well,
And my kids, I don't subject them to my music that much. I guess I'm not super confident in it, and they have strange tastes. But my youngest came in one day when I was playing that and literally started pogoing.
nice.
I was like, that was the highest form of praise ever, when somebody is just like bouncing around. And I was like,
That's
okay,
strong.
this one's good. This one's good.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that's why I started the album with it, because I felt like that one, is it the song that I'm most proud of? I don't know, but I feel great about it. Like, I never don't want to hear that song.
Yeah, it kind of sets the tone for the whole album, just kind of, all right, we're just going to have some fun here, man.
Yeah, well, it's funny, like, I talked about how these things all started out thematically, and the first one was just a place in time, and the second one was another place in time, but a place in time that was very political, where everything was about what was happening, with Black Lives Matter, with the Supreme Court, with the election, and various other things.
Hence, I dissent.
But like, I feel like there's almost a bipolarity to the album, because I either write kind of like happy, fun songs like Leaf Pile Day and Pogo, and even Murph and Surf, it's like going to the beach and having fun.
Yeah.
And then most of the other songs are like songs about depressing high school loners. And I find myself 40 years after graduating high school, almost, still going back to that emotional well. Not because I'm carrying that baggage with me. Like I'm happy. I don't want to go back to high school. I wouldn't avoid it if I got into Marty's DeLorean and ended up back at high school. Like I had fun there. It was okay. It wasn't great. There was a lot of emotional stuff that goes on that, when you're a teenager, being a teenager is hard, man.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's hard stuff. And I just feel like I don't feel like I'm wallowing in it, but I feel like it's fertile ground for that sort of emotional exploration.
Yeah.
So that's like, I think the second half of the album, with songs like Crescent Moon and Everything Falls Apart, those more come from that place. And it's a lot like, I don't know, have you ever heard of a band, Vince, called Nothing Painted Blue?
No.
All right, you should check them out. So they're like an indie rock band, and it's a guy named Franklin Bruno, and he just writes these amazing songs. The first song I heard is a song called Swivel Chair, and it's all about a kid visiting his mom at the office in the Chino Industrial Park. And the refrain is, "Why sit still when you've got a swivel chair?" Like, it's just the perfect song.
Nice.
I want you to check it out. But he's got a song, and at the end of it, he's like, "Yeah, that's right. We write songs about girls we can't look at. We're 13." And like, I find myself, I still write songs about girls we can't look at. Crescent Moon is writing a song about a girl you're afraid to talk to.
Right.
And it's written through the eyes of one of my kids, and I won't say which one because they're not here to defend themselves. But that's I go back to that well. So yeah, there's some happy stuff on there, and there's some stuff on there that's a little bit more introspective.
Yeah.
And I don't know that it. Sorry, go ahead.
Yeah, lyrically, I was getting almost like a Fountains of Wayne kind of vibe, like just this suburban angst, that's just like taken hold in the last 20 years. It's like, yeah, he nailed the zeitgeist, man.
Well, I guess people make fun of the suburbs. And they're like, suburban punks, like, that's not real. Why?
Well, yeah.
Why isn't it?
Yeah.
All right, so it's not as cinematic as, the Ramones or the Clash or, other bands that grew up in these somewhat bleak or desolate places. But listen to SoCal hip hop. Like,
right.
They grew up in paradise. It's beautiful there, but there's still problems. It's still real.
Yeah.
You can go to West Hollywood High and have a lot of problems, and
there's different problems, but they still hurt.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So that's true.
Yeah. So, yeah. Good stuff.
Thanks. Appreciate it. So. I want to ask you a question. Everybody now knows a little bit more about you, and they know that you fix your cars, and they know that you are a musician. But what they don't know is that you're a rocks star, not a rock star, but a rocks star. Tell us about this.
So my wife and I, rock and mineral collectors. And it's like Great Pumpkin, Charlie Brown. I got a candy bar, I got an apple, I got a rock. My wife would be so psyched about that. We'll be like on walks and stuff, trying to get the exercise in, and suddenly it's like, we're going from like a good clip to just like dead stop, and I'm like, what? She's like, that quartz vein there, there could be something in there. We should remember, look for pyrite in that. Like, yeah. So it's in fact, actually, we have she's doing a display at Syracuse Rock and Mineral Show coming up soon, and so she's busy getting ready for that, and has one whole table set up in the living room with blue painter's tape to show the size of the display. And yeah, she has some award-winning displays though, so if you're into that sort of thing, it's good stuff.
That's cool. I get into it. I like watching people who have a passion about anything.
Yeah.
And like sometimes I find myself, I'm scrolling through Facebook and there'll be like a video of a guy wood turning this gnarled old piece of wood
Yeah.
into a spoon. And I don't tend to fall for it as much anymore because I'm like, it just takes forever and it's just a spoon.
Yeah.
But just to watch somebody like have a vision to say that this is a thing and I'm going to make it into another thing,
Yeah.
I think that's pretty cool.
Yeah. Well, what's funny is we're both members of the Philadelphia Mineralogical Society, and somehow I got roped into I'm basically the VP, and it was like, how did this knucklehead get to be VP? And ultimately I was drafted, but I'm like, get Pam, she's much better at this than I am. So she's secretary now. But fortunately, oh my, there's a very large deer looking in my window. So sorry. Yeah, so I'm like, fortunately, VP's like the most useless position in the thing. It's like basically I show up to the exec meetings and vote, and because if I had any more responsibilities than that, the club would fall apart.
It almost sounds like the actual VP a bit, right? I mean,
Yes,
what else
very
does
much
Kamala
so.
Harris do besides break the tie?
Very much so.
Yeah.
It's like, yep. Whereas Pam is secretary now, and yeah, you need that. Keep everything sorted and going. But yeah, it was cool. The pandemic really changed rock and mineral buying, because generally it would be you'd go to these massive shows, which not a great idea during the pandemic when the vast younger folks are getting into it now, more women are getting into it, but still the vast majority of the demographic is old white dudes with diabetes. So yeah, it just not a good idea to pack all of them shoulder to shoulder. Yeah. So a lot of folks went on the internet with it and with Facebook, and they would create these Facebook groups where they'd have like a couple live shows every day selling the stuff. And it really has made a huge impact on the whole hobby, because it's like, oh yeah, we're seeing vendors now that never make it to the East Coast, and vice versa. Some of our friends on the East Coast are like getting global customers now. And so it's been kind of interesting. Again, we go way back with marketing and IT and stuff, and of e-commerce happening, where it's not just, okay, I'm going onto your website and ordering something, or going onto eBay or Amazon. It's more, I'm doing the Facebook live show and we're interacting real time, and you're buying stuff from me that way. It's like an internet HV or QVC.
Right. Well, I think one of the things that, and maybe the only good thing that came out of the COVID years is that we've gotten so much more comfortable with communicating in this manner over the wire. I mean, you and I were, like 8 miles apart? So we could have done this in person. It would have been a lot harder to record. So part of the reason why we did it this way. But like I think you can still get the same level of connection or a similar quality of connection with an individual without being in the same physical location because we've just gotten used to it. We're not freaked out by cameras and screens anymore.
Right.
So
Yeah, because I cut my teeth on collaborative tools, video conferencing, telemedicine. When I was working for SU, that was my main focus. Then when I went to Merck, after doing the websites, they had me on their video detailing stuff. That's my background, and so yeah, I've been doing video over IP like since the 90s. So it's like, now to finally see it like, oh yeah, every computer has this built in now. This is commonplace. It's just kind of surreal because, like, on the one hand, I genuinely believe back in the 90s, as soon as we get broadband everywhere, this is going to be the thing. And it really wasn't, And, so then it was like the journey. I got bitter and disillusioned. So it's like, screw it, this video over IP crap, whatever, done with it. And then, COVID hits and it's like, oh yeah, this is back with a vengeance. And I think it's here to stay now.
I think so too. I think so too.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting because I've telecommuted for almost 10 years now. And, before, people would always have like kind of a, so is he really working or is he watching YouTube all day, And I think we've seen now actually some places productivity's gone up since going to telecommuting, but we're also seeing kind of this reflex action of, yes, my people can actually work remotely. So why are we paying expensive Americans? And it's like, yeah, remember that last offshoring wave that you tried that ended in complete disaster, and that's why you brought everyone back? So it's going to be interesting to see how that pendulum goes, and
Yeah, I work remotely for a while before COVID too, and I preferred it. I mean, first of all, you could sit down and write songs, which is awesome. And like never wearing shoes, you don't put a lot of miles on your car. Those are good things. And I
you're
think
not
it
wearing
also,
pants as we speak, right?
you'll never know. Well, I mean, you know me pretty well, so you've probably already made your guess. But
I have a guess. Yeah,
I'm not going to let the cat out of the bag. But the other thing I think is that different personality types. Like I'm more of an introvert. I'm not shy reacting to people one-on-one, but like it takes an energy. Yeah. And I kind of need to I need to go back to home base to recharge. And the fact that I'm in home base makes it very easy. So I could spend 8 hours a day on conference calls and make it through and still be, pretty connected by the end of the day. I'll be tired, but I can still be functional. Whereas if I'm in the office and have to do 8 hours of meetings, by the end of the day, I'm just I'm not myself. I'm short-tempered with people and I'm reactive rather than thinking things through. Yeah. So I think that, most companies now are getting enlightened about it. And I think that it helps that it saves them money because they don't have to rent expensive corporate real estate, or at least not as much of it.
Yeah. One of my clients sold 2 buildings.
Yeah.
Because they're like, yeah, we can make millions just by not having people come in.
Exactly. Why would you spend that kind of money on, and working in advertising, every advertising agency wants to have the cachet of an upper floor Midtown Manhattan office.
Right.
That's like $4 million per floor.
Oh yeah.
And if you got 15 floors, that's just dumb. Why spend that? You don't need to.
Yeah.
All right, well, let's stop talking about boring corporate real estate stuff. And I want to get back to, so you asked me when we were doing our tech setup about the Man Ray poster.
Yes.
So that's
love it.
And it's the photo that he took of Lee Miller,
right?
who was ostensibly his model and photographic assistant, but actually was quite a good photographer herself.
Yeah.
I have one of her books upstairs. I was in London on one of my many visits there. I have a good friend who lived over there, and I would go visit him pretty frequently. And I was famous, having no money, for just going and finding stuff that was free or walking in with school groups.
Yeah.
And I went to the Serpentine Gallery in Hyde Park, and they had an exhibition on Man Ray, and it was the last day that they were having it, and the poster was on sale for two quid.
Nice.
So I got to see a great Man Ray exhibit midweek with nobody else around, and got the poster for 2 quid. It's got some creases in it because I had to stuff it in my overhead bag when I came home. But yeah, that's been on the wall. It's one of the first things that went up in this office.
Yeah, very cool. Very
Yeah.
cool.
We got Elvis and this, you might like this since you like punk stuff. I don't know if you can see it, but it's
Yes.
pulp
Brilliant.
book cover of "I'm So Bored with the USA." I'm like, that's just too good. Too good.
That's brilliant, man.
Yeah, good stuff. So, all right. So I want to be respectful of your time. We're almost at an hour here. This has been great. I really love catching up with you, and
It's been fun.
I think it's been fun stuff. And thank you first of all for even listening to the record. I appreciate it. I appreciate that you showed the trust in me to listen through it all the way through once. And thanks for all the thoughtful feedback.
Good stuff, man.
Means everything to me. But let's go out on our hot take question. And the hot take question is: better movie, Empire Records or School of Rock?
That's a tough one, man.
No.
They fill two entirely different needs, So I gotta go School of Rock for fun, Empire Records for film snob cred.
Film snob cred. Explain.
Well, it's you can't be a film snob and praise any movie that has Jack Black in it. Period. It just doesn't work. And Empire Records, it's got some of those vestigial hipster music record snob kind of thing going on. It's a great movie, So yeah, just if we're talking purely in terms of better movie, has to go Empire Records for that. If we're talking which one would I rather watch, whether I'm, in a, crappy, stormy day, work's just been awful, I need a pick-me-up, or I need some brain candy, School of Rock all the way. You don't have to really watch it to enjoy it. In fact,
I like that. You don't have to watch it to enjoy it.
Yeah.
I think you hit the essence of it. All right.
That's
All right.
cool.
Well, Vince, again, thanks so much. Thanks for joining the call today. And it was great hearing from you, and we'll talk again soon.
Sounds good. See ya.
All right, thanks to Vince for joining us today for the interview. Thanks to you for staying with the content so far. I hope that means you enjoyed it. And please, if you did enjoy it, hit like, consider subscribing. There's going to be new content every Monday, come rain or shine. And I appreciate everything that you guys give, all your feedback, your comments, any likes, any suggestions you have. Please do leave a comment. I'll also be putting some links to the songs that we talked about, Men Behind the Wire and Pogo and Murph and Surf. Basically, I'll put links to the whole album so you can check it out. And maybe even if I can find some links to some of the other content that we talked about, Nothing Painted Blue or Empire Records, if you've never seen that movie. I think everybody's seen and heard of School of Rock, but Empire Records is kind of from a place in time. If you haven't checked it out, it is a very enjoyable movie. So that's it for today. Again, thank you for joining, and I hope that we'll see you again soon. Until then, take it easy and be well.